The Hainanese Chicken Rice, take two. Someone just got hit by a bicycle. Anyway, they are all fine. Just for those playing at home. To the Hainanese Chicken Rice and Mothervine. Now, this is quite a difficult one for me. They don't usually do Hainanese Chicken Rice, but they do food and booze up to an extraordinarily high standard. Now, the gentleman behind the pans, supposedly from an area in Asia where they do dabble in a bit of Hainanese chicken rice, so he does have a bit of experience there. But it also had a very much a homemade touch, which a hell of a lot less salt. So not necessarily a sort of Moorish, but also far more refreshing. So it's a hard one for me to sort of score initially. So I'll give you the sort of rundown. So $17 a plate, and $5 Tsingtao's, which is about half the price of Tsingtao's anywhere on Guja Street, usually about $9.50. Cooper's Pale Ale, actually usually about sort of $7 or $7.50. So when people go for a Hainanese chicken rice and they grab a Tsingtao, they don't actually realise that they're paying about $2, $2.50 more than a Cooper's Pale Ale. So it was actually very good value. Now, first came out was were the sauces. Three. The two sort of traditional, a red and a green, one with sort of spring onions and oil and ginger, and the other one with chili and ginger, and very sort of high tone and fresh. But then there was a third which had like a bit of a sort of a sugar syrup chili and all the other sort of stuff, but a bit more of a brown sauce, much sweeter, but also very, very intense and extraordinarily good. And now the broth itself, very much bone sort of influenced, which was good, but not as high tone, a little bit more sort of underlying sort of umami. The rice itself, good colour, so you get excited when there's good colour because you think it's going to be really quite sort of flavoursome and beautiful, and which it was, but you can also tell when it is more sort of influenced by either chicken fat or oil, and that was the case by this. Now, when that happens, as someone that's a home cook and does this quite a bit, and every single time I do it, sort of hope that I'm not going to make the same mistake again. But if you use too much oil or chicken fat, you actually lose nuance that you would have from the chicken stock. So that was probably the only weak point, because getting into the chicken was actually probably the best Hainanese actual chicken I've ever had. Perfectly done. Sorry about that, accidentally pressed the non-record button. Ever. So it was just, I'll post a couple of photos, but you can actually just see just how tender and juicy the chicken was. By far the best chicken and skin I've ever had in my entire life in a Hainanese chicken rice. So overall, initially I thought I was probably going to give it, honestly, I thought I was going to give it 9.7. But that sort of home cooked nature sort of polarised a couple of people I was with, and they sort of actually put it right down, and I just think that's completely unfair. But altogether, I thought it was actually one of the best I've ever had, with all the sauces and the chicken. Yep, rice maybe a touch gluggy, but that's just from the oil, not necessarily the cooking. You can still see it was granulated and separate. So I'm going to say 9.3. 9.3, I'm locking it in. That was sensational. I don't care what anyone says. That's bloody brilliant.